Hey, welcome to Truth Between Lines. I am sitting here with Tom Basile. He is a Newsmax anchor, and I'm really excited to have you back. We actually had you in October of 2025, and we did a whole interview, and thank you for your time then and now. And the funny thing about it is we're actually going to answer some of the questions that we did not know the answers to back in October. And we're going to a whole bunch of news cycle going forward. So, Tom, welcome back to Truth Between Lines. I appreciate you being here.
It's great to be here, and thank you for what you do, Brian. I really it means a lot. I know you got a lot of people who are watching all across Eastern Tennessee and the Knoxville area, and you're an important voice. And since I live here, we need important voices. We need people who are willing to talk about not just the national issues, but the local issues. And so, thanks again, and I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, very good. Now, if you didn't watch that one yet, the other one, we're going to kind of reintroduce you because I mean you've been in politics. I would imagine most of your life overall. Number one, right now you host America Right Now on Newsmax Saturday
Mhm.
mornings. We'll talk about Newsmax a little further on that one, but also you work for George W. Bush back in
Mhm.
the early 2000s. I mean, you worked in Iraq too for the communications. You were doing a lot of things, including your book, which I realized I didn't know about until recently. So, congratulations on writing a book. You were also the state executive for the New York Republican Party in 2009 to 2011. Big years, if you remember that kind of
That's
time,
right.
for the people out there during the Great Recession. So I'm sure that was interesting. But you ran for Senate, City Council. You've been there, done that. You've been in the ring, and you've gotten blood and dirty and everything else. And it's just a wealth of knowledge. So the fact that you're sitting here with me, I'm impressed. Thank you
No.
so much.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
It's great to be with you.
Yeah.
I've been very blessed in my career,
Yep.
and been very fortunate to see politics, public policy, uh, and government, business, from a variety of different vantage points. But having been a practitioner and somebody who's had the ability to be involved at from the local level,
Mhm.
starting as a teenager all the way up to the White House, and now in the media, and doing my best
Mhm.
to talk about truth, and to give people confidence in their media again, which is a real serious challenge that we're having in our country.
Yeah.
So again, I've been very fortunate.
Yeah. And we're seeing that, to your point. We're seeing that right now with other networks. Okay. And you're talking about your mainstream media too. You're seeing, and I won't mention any names, but I mean, we're seeing shows canceled because I mean, it's for lack of viewership, or maybe it's because of what they're saying and the message is not resonating with people. You're talking about people that networks are coming in with new executive directors that are coming in and basically firing in order to retool what they're doing. Talk to me
Mhm.
about Newsmax, because obviously Newsmax is a right leaning conservative group overall, doing print, but obviously TV. And want to see what's the temperature there. Not don't speak for anybody else, of course, but what is the temperature at Newsmax? Are you going to continue going on the direction that you've been founded from?
Yeah, look, I think that the basic principle is respect the intelligence of the audience. I'm very fortunate to work at a place where, I mean, people know that I'm a conservative, and they know that I'm pro-life, and they know that I'm a strong Catholic, and I've never gotten a phone call from anybody that says, "Hey, why don't you dial that back a little
Right.
bit?"
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's the key to it, frankly, is present the facts, give people a broad view of what is going on, um, and allow them to make their own decisions.
Mhm.
And we need to get back to that. And it can't just be Newsmax. We need to get back to that. And I'll mention the other networks: CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN. CNN is a disaster.
Mhm.
CNN has lost 40%, I think, of their viewership, and that's because they decided that they wanted to go hardcore left wing. Well, that's not where the country is.
Mhm.
The country is not there. Scott Pelley has made more news getting fired over
Right.
these last couple of weeks because he's whining and complaining about it. But when you sit in front of your network executives and you
Mhm.
accuse them of trying to blow up the network just because they're attempting to make it fairer, and attempting to say, well, you can't put your thumb on the scale all the time. That we need to do something to get our viewership back by reestablishing trust, and you go bonkers, well, of course you're going to get fired, right? But that gives you a sense of sort of what the mentality is in these newsrooms, where they've been leftist activists for so long that now when the executives come in and they say, well, this is a business, we're thumbing our nose at 50% of our consumer base, we need to change. It's the Pew Research poll. It was either Pew or Gallup, I forget which one. Pew or Gallup a couple of months ago came out. 29% of the population has has trust in the media.
29%.
29%. And of
Yeah.
course, that gets worse as you start looking at the stuff that's coming
Mhm.
in through your phone, 80% of which by 2030, they estimate that 80% of the information that you're going to get off of this will be manufactured, totally fake, or somehow manipulated information. So
Mhm.
Americans they're really grappling with, where do I go? What
Yeah.
do I do? And that's why what you do is so important, because you have a particular point of view, but that going in,
Mhm.
and people can listen to different points of view, and then they can sort of make up their own mind. But the journalism, we're still in this very transitional phase of American journalism, and it does come with a tremendous amount of responsibility, where people are going to have to curate what
Mhm.
they're viewing, what they're watching, what they're reading, and they're going to have to also now be looking at, well, what is AI and what is
Yeah.
real, what is virtual reality and what is actual reality. So it's very, very complex. As from the network standpoint, again, our mantra is just respect the intelligence of the audience, be as fair as you can, um, but and then just let people make with it what they will.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that, it makes perfect sense. It's common sense, but you're right. That's not what's happening overall. I didn't even know who Scott Pelley was from 60 Minutes. I didn't even know who that was until he got fired. And I was
Right.
like, and I almost did a story on it. I was going to do a thing, and then I just got sidetracked. And then I realized, like, this guy is completely out of his bubble. Like, his bubble burst, and he didn't know what to do. And it is crazy how that plays
And he's a
out.
pompous SOB. I mean, everybody who knows him knows that. But again, when you've been allowed to say and do whatever
Yeah.
with impunity for this long, um, and especially these producers, these executive
Mhm.
producers, these other, these reporters,
Mhm.
who are resigning, who are threatening to walk out, go, leave.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Both Barry Weiss is doing at CBS needs to
Mhm.
be done, not only from a business standpoint, but from a credibility standpoint. And she actually may, with the merger, the Paramount merger, she may actually end up being in charge of CNN as well. So, you got a lot. There's a lot going on. I think you're going to see a lot of change. Hopefully, it's positive,
Yeah.
because we, as a country that is based on dialogue,
Yeah.
where we have to dialogue with each other,
Mhm.
we need to have information sources that we can trust.
Yeah. Now, Newsmax, you film out of New York City, right? Manhattan, East Side. Okay.
Yeah,
So when we did our interview last October, the idea was, oh my gosh, could it be possible that Zohran Mamdani was going to be elected the mayor of New York City? And we went back and forth, and it was like,
yeah,
all right. And of course, watch if you're watching this, watch that video to find out our reaction to it. But all right, let's fast forward. He's now the mayor of New York City.
yeah.
You go up there, and what has it changed in the 6 months that since he's been elected? Have you seen different things, the subways, the trains? I mean, what's your overall synopsis of the mood happening in New York City right now?
The mood um is pretty sour. People are he hasn't made any major changes yet. And one of the reasons why he hasn't done that is because Kathy Hochul is running for governor, and they don't want blowback during an
Oh,
election year
yeah.
of, him going sort of full on socialist. There's a lot of, you're going to watch him develop and increase his criticism of the party. He is starting to do that.
Mhm.
Um, but you're going to see him to start to cultivate power
Hmm.
over these next, let's say, 6 months from now,
Okay.
next year. And I said that, when he got elected, I was just like, this is going to be fairly tame
Mm.
to start
Okay.
off with. And yes, he's got his, government run supermarkets. He's trying to advance that. He wants, so-called free buses.
Mm.
They're all talking about, raising taxes on property owners and,
Second
um,
homeowners.
eh,
Yeah.
all this other stuff. He's got a big, a public housing project that he wants to do. All of this, but he needs the governor and he needs the legislature, and so
Mm.
they want to be careful not to not to hurt the chances of folks who are in these marginal seats in the suburbs.
Mm.
But I was up in New York, in back where I grew up, not long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and was talking with folks, and every single person that I spoke to, unprompted. I don't bring this stuff up because I
Right.
don't
Right.
like to
Sure.
depress people, right? I like to have positive conversations with folks. But the number of storefronts that were vacant,
Mm.
the number of what are illegals that have been pushed into the suburbs, uh, the overall feeling from people was, again, we want to get out. We
Mhm.
wish we could leave, but we can't. Or it's going down, and um, so I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet. And a poll just came out today, in fact, that showed that this populist, what I would loosely call populist, what they call populist, what I would call socialist, democratic socialist tendencies on the electorate in the city of New York is getting worse, which means that there's going to be a lot more pressure on the old liberal establishment of the party to continue to move left, and
Wow.
Mondami and AOC are driving that. And so, unfortunately, in places like New York, it's going to get worse before it gets better, and of course that has an impact on places all over the country, including here in Knoxville.
Yeah, sure. When people moving away, fleeing the blue states. Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, how do you tell people, "Hey, sorry, we're no longer going to be paying for your lifestyle anymore, and you need to get a job, or you need to move on, or do something else," because it's going to continue to go left, and
Hmm.
for welfare and everything else going forward until you run out of money, which pretty much they already did until they did some magical, economy stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a very interesting thing. When is Hochul election? When is she?
she's up in November.
Okay, but
She's up in she's up in November.
I guess the
Every
primary
member of
should
the
be
state
sooner then.
legislature is up in November.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's, like I said, just the crazy hasn't really started yet
yeah. Well,
because they're concerned about these marginal seats that are in the suburbs.
yeah, and it's still the honeymoon thing too. It's still Eric Adams' fault beforehand and all that too, is where some Mamdani can do it. I
Yeah,
mean, you obviously you can't do the
but
bus
they're
thing.
out of
He already
money.
tried that.
They're out of money.
So overall, now that we've seen Zohran Mamdani elected in New York City, we're seeing it across the country too. We saw Katie Wilson out of Seattle. She's having her own whole host of problems over there.
Mhm.
Watching Los Angeles and Nithya Raman taking over Spencer Pratt, of course, Karen Bass being the current incumbent. She's still leading, if you depending on what election polls you're watching. Talk to me about how the future of America does with democratic socialism now that we're watching it right now in real time.
Yeah, I said after Mondami got elected that there would be a Mondami effect
Mm,
where he would legitimize democratic socialism to some degree,
mm,
and give it a boost within the Democratic Party, and that's what we're seeing. Bernie Sanders has endorsed a lot of folks in these congressional primaries who have actually gone on to win.
yeah,
And so this shift away from traditional liberalism, where, and you remember, Brian, like back in the 90s, where people were like, well, there's not that much difference between
right.
Republicans and Democrats, and I mean, there was sort of these shades of gray, and you know what, in some to some
Yeah,
degree, that
right.
actually was true, right? There was a reason why a Ronald Reagan could sit down with a Tip O'Neill,
Hmm.
and the two of them could work out the biggest, could work out tax cuts, could work out the biggest tax cut package in American history.
Hmm.
There's a reason why that was possible. That's now you're now dealing with people who have a totally different worldview, who are driving the Democratic Party.
Hmm.
Um, and Democrats have to decide whether or not they're going to just stand by and allow that to happen. I mean, in New Jersey, across the river from Mondami, um, a a candidate, a Democrat candidate,
Hmm.
who has ties to Al Qaeda and the first World Trade Center bomber,
Yeah.
won his primary. And Hakeem Jeffries refuses to disavow this guy. You've got Plattner up
Hmm.
in Maine,
Yeah.
who 4 years ago said that he was a communist. He had a Nazi tattoo on his chest for something like 17 years.
Yeah.
The guy is a total fraud. He's a total whack job, and yet, Chuck Schumer is all about him.
Well, they'll say
Um,
it's different this time. I mean, he's grown. He's done different
oh
things.
yeah,
He's atoned for his sins and
y-
stuff.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, if it were a Republican who
Yeah.
had any one of these issues, the
Right.
sexting stuff, for
Yeah.
instance,
Yeah.
any one of these issues, it would be there would be calls for this guy to be booted off the ballot. Remember, these are the same people who tried to boot Trump off the ballot when he was running for reelection in like 5 or 6 different states, and now they're backing a neo-Nazi, self-avowed, um, a communist drug addict
Yeah.
to be the senator in Maine. So the long and short of it is that this wing of the party, they can do any however many autopsies that they want out of the Democratic National Committee on what happened in 2024.
Mhm.
But the Democratic Party is shifting, and we're going into the 250th birthday of this country. Okay, and the numbers came out just the other day. Actually, CNN ran with this,
Mm.
that over the last 20 years, the number of Republicans who were the percentage of Republicans who said that they were either extremely proud or somewhat proud to be an American maintained, it was static. It was
Okay.
between 85 and 90%,
Yeah.
something like that, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
The number today of Democrats who are in any way, shape, or form proud to be an American
Yeah.
is now under 30%.
Right.
So I want you to think people need to think about that. The Democratic Party and the Marxist sort of march through the institutions, has preyed upon, this uh, cadre of angry, bitter, weak-minded, mostly secular folks, many of whom have some sort of um, Trump derangement syndrome, fueled by some sort of latent, mental health issue,
Mhm.
and and these are people who, beyond all of the facts and the history behind it and the data to the contrary,
Hmm.
cannot stand this country.
Yeah.
This is becoming, and that's what socialism is. It's an anti-American ideology. When you have a senator like Tim Kaine compare America to the theocracy of the terrorists in Iran because we believe that our rights come from God,
Mhm.
not from government,
Right.
you have a total collapse within that political party of the basic fundamental principles upon which this country was founded.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what we're seeing.
Yeah. I see a couple things as far as if you fly an American flag, people know who you voted for. I thought, well, that's crazy to think about, right? Obviously, if you see an American flag that's supposed to be, liberty and justice for all, and you're gonna be like, well, that's a Republican voter at that point. I mean, the thought of that being the decisive moment of which flag you fly, and you can't fly the
Right.
country flag, that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, we're dealing with people who I think, and we've seen some of these incredibly troubling statistics about, in particular, self-identified leftist women who also have some sort of diagnosable mental illness.
Yeah.
It's a very, very troubling trend. But I will say this, when you strip religion out of the society, so when you strip Judeo Christian values out of the
Mhm.
society, and you are indoctrinated in schools where they literally teach you to hate America, and then you pick up your phone and every day you're told that everything is going to hell, and the country is fundamentally racist, and it's a cauldron of oppression, and it's Donald Trump, and it's conservatives, and it's people who hold traditional values. It's their fault. If you're at all weak-minded,
Yeah.
um, or you're looking for somebody to blame for your lot in life, and your entire personality is then shaped by this 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 blame game,
Mhm.
um, you can understand why people are pissed off.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I wasn't going to bring it up, but we could talk about when Elon Musk hit his trillionaire status. Everyone
yeah,
blamed him for stealing all of the money in the world, and it's like,
yeah,
what?
yeah. And
I,
none of those people want to acknowledge that Elon Musk employs
yeah,
150,000 people,
sure.
all of whom pay taxes, many of
Yeah.
whom went from being middle class to millionaires.
4,400 people did that, either millionaire or multimillionaire overnight because of
Right.
Elon Musk. Yeah,
But again, these are folks who need somebody to blame
yeah,
because their lives didn't turn out the way that they wanted them to, and instead of pulling themselves up, they're always looking for somebody else to give them something.
yeah.
And unfortunately, and I've got people in my family who are like this. I mean,
Mm,
I have a friend of mine who whose wife is like this, and they're constantly angry, and
yeah,
they're for one reason or another, they have decided that they hate this country.
yeah.
um and people just need to be aware. And the first thing that I always say is, when you see one of these blue-haired mask-wearing people,
Yeah.
the people who have the coexist, bumper sticker, who are probably going to the rally where they're going to burn some crap down. Those people, you have to pray for them. The first thing to do is when you see one of these people who's still wearing a mask,
Oh yeah.
you don't see a lot of it around here in Knoxville, but
No.
you do see it in a lot of places like in New York. When
Do
you
you?
see somebody who's wearing a mask six years after the pandemic,
Yeah.
because they are just so broken mentally,
Yeah.
the first thing that you do is you pray for these people. When you see somebody who hates this country, but then when they're asked a simple question like, "Well, what is fascism if you think that this is a
Yeah.
fascist country?" or "What rights have been stripped away from you?" And you see these folks online all the time. They
All the
can't
time.
answer the question. They totally short circuit.
Yeah.
Um, you have to pray for these people because they've been manipulated,
Mhm.
then they don't even know it.
Right.
And so that's, as we go into this 250th anniversary year, where we're celebrating this, the lines of demarcation in this country have never been clearer,
Mhm.
have never been brighter. And we have a lot of troubled people who deserve our prayer, but we also have a value system that I think will make a comeback if people are just willing to stand up for Judeo-Christian values and basic American principles. And then let's debate about the nuances of policy. But if we have enough of those people where I think that we really can,
Mhm.
we can persevere here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. I mean, now talking about the 250 celebration for the birthday and all, UFC was approximately last week, depending on when people are actually watching this. The UFC on the South Lawn at the White
Yeah.
House, you had Nitro Circus. I mean, you had an amazing show, and people are so fixated on, oh my God, there's fighters and they're fighting on the South Lawn. It's such a forget about all the things that Biden did when he painted all the pillars and they had men walking around topless. So I'm looking at this thing like, all right, even if you weren't a UFC fighting, Ultimate Fighting champion a viewer, a watcher, and I'm not a huge fan, but I watch it every now and then. But if you watch that show and the way that they put it together, the committee that did that, they had the Medal of Honor winners coming out. They had a
Yeah.
whole bunch of heroes, the flyovers, I
Yeah.
mean, God, I'm just thinking about it. My head's expanding right now. But watching the military service there, watching it, God, that was a good show.
It
And
was,
I'm
you know,
hoping.
one of the first things that I did one of the things I did for the White House when I
Yeah.
was in the Bush administration was I put together large scale media events for the
Did you?
president. I traveled all over the world and all over the country, and so I can appreciate the production value and what it takes to actually do that
Yeah.
and put that together, and the detail and how this was constructed. It was really extraordinary. And I'm not a UFC fan. I've never watched a UFC fight. I had a party here in Knoxville with my son's friends and their dads, and we all kind of got together and we watched it, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And this is all Trump. Like I was at the White House, like I think about 2 days after
Yeah.
this came out of his head, and he said it on national television. We're gonna have a fight. And I
Yeah.
was in the White House, and I was talking to somebody who was in charge of America 250,
Mhm.
and she looked at me and she said, "We have to plan a fight on the South Lawn. I have no idea how we're gonna do this."
Right.
And she was sort of beside herself, but she's like, "Well, this is what the boss wants. We're gonna have to deliver."
Yeah.
And she and her team and all the folks who were doing all the America 250 stuff, wow, did they deliver?
Yeah.
And what a great showcase
Mhm.
of America, of our first responders, of our
Yep.
military, of our
Mhm.
of our military heroes. But they also showcased our history and the White House. Remember,
Mhm.
Democrats have spent the last part of the a good part of the last year and a half telling everybody that Trump literally tore the White House down.
Right.
um and that he had desecrated the White House. I don't know where all these people were during Biden and Clinton in particular.
Right.
But
Yeah.
anyway, that's what they were saying. They were saying, oh, yeah, he's torn the White House down, he's destroyed our history. And one of the things I thought that was so smart was they highlighted different historic rooms
Mhm.
in the house,
Yep. Sure
um,
did.
as they were doing these walkouts.
Mhm.
Who was coming out of the diplomatic reception room, which
Yeah.
guy was coming out of the blue room on the state floor, which guy was coming down the staircase on the south portico.
Yeah.
It was very, very well done. I thought it was great.
Yeah. I thought it was too. So we see all of this celebration. July 4th, obviously coming up here in a couple weeks. We're looking at, do people double down and say, I hate America? Or are they going to watch all the fireworks, watch all the banners, the flags waving, and go, you know what? They're right. This America's not that bad. I mean,
I I think that the people who watch MSDNC or MS Now or whatever the hell they're calling themselves now, I think that we're still in this place where we're back in our corners, um, and people you're going to have a lot of people who are in the middle,
Mhm.
who aren't necessarily fans of Trump, who are going to get past it, and they're going to look at it a little bit more objectively. Unfortunately, I think that the left wing media, which still controls most of the media, I think that they are going to drive a lot of well, we had this great moment of unity and all this celebration, but there's always the
Yeah,
but, right? And but there were protesters, and but there were anti-Trump rioters, and but
yeah.
there's this, and but there's that. And then going forward into the midterm elections, I am concerned about more and more political violence.
Mm,
The Democratic Socialists of America are not to be, and their affiliated organizations
yeah.
are not to be underestimated in terms of the money that they have, the organization that they have. I did a story on my show on Newsmax not long ago about these liberation centers. There are 28 of them that are being built in cities all across America. The Daily Caller just did a piece on the Red Rabbit Brigade, which is the sort of the militant anti-cop training wing of the Democratic Socialists of America, who are preparing for confrontation. They're helping these groups of agitators, professional agitators and volunteers, prepare to engage with police officers.
Wow.
Um, so there are these militant left wing strains that have a lot of money,
Mhm.
and a lot of organization. And I am concerned that they're going to take a 2020 strategy because they feel like it worked, which is basically the BLM strategy and the
Oh,
Antifa strategy, which is
right.
let's try to create as much chaos as humanly possible in the run up to the elections, and see if that helps tip the scales. The more chaotic the country looks, the more that they believe that the more Trump ultimately will be blamed, and Republicans will be blamed. I'm not sure that that's true.
Yeah,
I think that gag worked in
yeah,
2020. Not
yeah.
sure it'll work again in 2024, but they know that before the pandemic, Trump was really riding high,
Yes.
um, and the pandemic sort of damaged him and damaged the economy. I think they see Republicans as being damaged now because most Americans are not feeling confident about the economy, because they've been taught to sort of ignore the basic facts. But I think that they may try to do that. So regardless of what happens July 4th and that weekend,
Mhm.
um, I think that there's a larger strategy that could be employed here, between then and November, and so we need to be very careful.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a winning strategy for them because of all the things. And I guess we'll have to revisit that in 6 to 8 months and figure out whether or not it actually does work or not.
And Brian, it all goes back to Marx, right? Marx and Alinsky and all these guys, and Stalin, they all and Mao. It's
Yeah.
by whatever means necessary.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Violence is
Yeah.
okay. It's the agenda is
Right.
what drives. And because
Yeah.
it's a secular agenda, there are no morals, there are no values, there's no, there's this there's no God. There are no standards of behavior. And that's, we've been dealing with this, on a global scale for,
Mhm.
150 years,
Wow.
and it's just finally come to roost here in a way that is now, a very very active part of our politics.
It comes down to a hostage situation at that point too. Like, hey, the riots and the chaos will stop once you elect our people into office.
Mm,
Like, it's because of the other party that's doing this, so elect us, and then we'll make sure everything's taken care of. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I would, as a level-headed, I would say common sense guy, I would say that's probably a losing strategy. But in today's climate, that might be the way it goes, unfortunately.
Hey, look. I mean, like I said, everybody bought BLM.
Yep.
Right. People
Right.
people
Corporate
thought
bosses.
that Black Lives Matter
Mhm.
was this benevolent, public charity that was going to help, inner city Black youth and families,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
They were all living high on the hog. It was all a political operation to try to funnel money to
Yeah.
through Act Blue, which is now under investigation
Mhm.
by, I believe, the Justice Department and the Congress, to funnel money to left wing candidates.
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg put $400 million into helping people during the pandemic ensure that they could exercise their right to vote. Yeah, well, where did he do it? He did it in places where they could mobilize voters to vote for Joe Biden, right? So, look, conservatives have to be very, very keenly aware that this is the crap that's going on, and
Mhm.
they have to be ready to push back, to be organized. There are a lot of folks out there. I know people who are Republicans who aren't necessarily thrilled with Trump, or they're not happy with John Thune. I'm not happy with John Thune. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, they're different. Okay.
you want the Save America Act passed. I
Mhm.
get it. We all want citizens and voter ID and all of that. Tim Burchett's
Mhm.
been pounding the drum on so many different issues, and a lot of it does have challenges getting through Congress, and there's frustration. But you have to come out in November. They're counting on Republicans staying home, or in some sort of a protest, or doing a protest vote, or whatever it is from moderates.
Mhm.
If you do a protest vote in the state of our society and our politics now,
Mhm.
you're getting a socialist.
Yeah.
You're not getting a progressive. You're not getting a liberal. You're getting a socialist,
Mhm.
or somebody who is aligned or funded by the DSA, and that's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. Switching gears to Iran. Now, back in the Middle East, you're a big part in the Iraq War back in '03. Where are we at now? Do we see peace in the Middle East? I think it's hilarious. And hilarious is a hard word, but Pakistan is like doing the treaty from this, considering where we were at with Pakistan for so long, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, we come full circle with them.
The-
Will we
the-
see this from Iran in 20 years?
the-
So where are we at now? What's happening?
all right. So look, my basic point of view, having been in the region, understanding the history, is and knowing what we're up against,
Yeah,
is you can't negotiate with terrorists, you kill them. All right.
yeah,
Islamic fundamentalism is these are not rational actors. They have also been very clear that
mhm,
they have common cause, at least at this moment, with the communists. All
yeah.
right.
Well, sure. They're working with China
So
and Russia. Sure. Yeah.
right. So you can't make a deal with these people.
Right.
Um, I we had if you believe the president, he says, we basically have our foot on the throat of the Iranian regime,
Mhm,
which is the regime that has killed more Americans, more Muslims, more Jews
mhm,
than any regime in 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 existence, and they have been able to do it with impunity for a half century. If we have our foot on the throat of that regime, we stomp on it.
mhm.
That's what I believe. Okay, I'm considered a hawk today, but I think that it's practical
Yeah.
that if you're going to invest the time and the energy and the money and the lives, um, to do this, you do it
Mhm,
right. I do understand there are domestic pressures against the president for continuing the war at this time. I do understand that there is a desire to at least attempt
mhm,
a um, an outcome that would mitigate, loss of life in Iran.
Yeah.
But I think that this is a very dubious proposition.
Okay.
Um, do I think that there is a chance, and a strong chance, that after 60 days we don't really get anywhere with these people,
Mhm.
um, or their proxies, by the way, which have to be part of this deal? Hezbollah, Hamas, the
Right.
Houthis, all of these groups that they have been funding for all of these years, and not just in the Middle East, but the splinter groups that are also in Europe that they've funneled money to. They all have to be part of the deal,
Mhm.
because if
But
you
they're
make a
not
deal with,
though right now. I mean, that, as far as I'm understanding, like Israel wasn't really even talked to about this, and a lot of the other ones, I mean, even
that we
Saudi
that
Arabia, UAE.
that
Yeah.
we know of. And
Yeah.
look,
True. True. Right.
that we know of, and
Yeah.
this is the challenge, right? When we're
Yeah.
talking about military policy, and we're talking about foreign policy. Domestic policy is based on money and data, right?
Money and data.
So
Okay.
how much money are we spending on this particular program? It's tied to a particular piece of legislation, which is administered by the courts if there's any question about what that policy is. And then you would hope, we don't really do this very much, but you would hope that then you would look at the data.
Yeah.
Does the program
Makes sense.
work or not? Does it
Right.
need more money or not? There's more transparency when you're dealing with and we have to understand that when we're dealing with military policy, when we're dealing with foreign policy, we are always only dealing with
Mm.
this much information,
True.
right? So
Yeah.
we don't know what the back channel conversations really are with the
Mhm.
Israelis, or with the Saudis, or with the UAE, which is one of our big
Mhm.
allies in the Middle East, and is going to
Right.
be, after this war, is going to be an even bigger player
Wow.
in the region, and they're very very closely aligned with us. But we don't know what is really going on. We don't know
Mhm.
what the capabilities of the IRGC are at this point. We don't know really what the capabilities of their nuclear program were or are at this point. Um, so I am at this point. We're going to go through the 60-day period.
Mhm.
Um, I think that there's a good chance that after the election, that this could spin back up again.
Mm. Okay.
I also thought that the United States, together with some coalition partners, could have opened the Strait of Hormuz, taken control of it, and boxed out the Iranians from having any control over the strait ever again. And I kind of thought that before we ended the bombing campaign and before we really got to this phase, we should have done that,
Mm.
because you cannot have one country, and I don't care what country it is,
Yeah.
okay, be able to have that much control over global commerce and
Sure.
global energy prices. Like especially like Iran or
Mm.
China or Russia.
Right.
Um, and So I have some concerns about this, but because I know that we're operating at a deficit of information overall,
We
we'll
don't know.
give the administration an opportunity to see if they can actually do something that makes some sense here.
Mhm.
Um, but if not, we cannot allow this to be another war where our own rules of engagement and our own, domestic political concerns ultimately allow a regime to continue to kill people with impunity.
Mhm.
And and look, there have been a lot of positives that have come out of this so far, none of which are being discussed. All right, and that is, the ability of the Iranians to supply Russia with arms, the impact on the Chinese, because
Yeah.
Iran was a little brother to the Chinese. They were helping the Chinese were helping them. Uh, the output of oil to China has been has been dramatically reduced. The ability for now the UAE getting out of OPEC, the Saudis who have gotten have the ability to get very cozy with the Chinese.
Hmm.
The now you have the UAE is going to be a major player um, in the Middle East in terms of energy prices. And again, they have a very close relationship with the United States. They have a close relationship with Israel. So there's a lot of geopolitical shifts that are going to be happening as a result of this. But at the end of the day, I think that from my perspective, you can't make a deal with these people, and they're probably going to have to go back in some fashion.
Wow. Yeah, I was wondering that too, as far as can we trust anything people are saying at all, and including President Trump for that matter. As much as I'm a fan of his, I mean, there's so much more information we don't know from what you're kind of saying too, but we just don't know what is the back channel, what's happening on that one.
Yeah, and when it comes to Trump, you don't know whether or not Trump is trolling somebody when he says something,
True.
or he's being he's being strategic in what
Yeah.
he's saying,
Mhm.
or he's actually presenting factual information.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what the discussions are, or if there are discussions that are happening
Mhm.
about what to say when. Ordinarily, that's what you do. You don't say too
Right.
much during these things.
Yeah. You would,
But
and
but
yeah.
but then when you do something like what he did yesterday to Keir Starmer, then you ask yourself, and for those who don't know, the president of the United States tweeted out that the prime minister, who called him as a courtesy ahead of time to
Mm.
say that he was going to be announcing his resignation, the president got off the phone and tweeted out that the prime minister of Great Britain was going to be resigning, and that was like a huge fu to Starmer and to the UK government, the Labour government, which Starmer and Trump do not get along.
Right.
Ordinarily, you just that's just you don't do that,
Right.
right? It's
Yeah.
just really, really poor form, and it angered a lot of people over in the UK. You just don't do that. He's having this fight with Giorgia Meloni now in Italy, which Giorgia Meloni was like his biggest fan in Italy. He's burned that bridge. And again, so is there, what is the strategy behind all of this? I really don't know.
Mm.
Um, but when it comes to Iran, we'll give it the 60 days and see what happens. Most Americans want us out of there.
Right.
I think that we'll see somewhat of a status quo um, through the election, and then after November, I think all bets are off.
Do you, after we do what we did in Venezuela, plucked out Maduro and all that stuff, and what we're kind of seeing right now with Cuba, do you think that the Iran war confrontation situation there hurt the reputation of the military of the United States and President Donald Trump?
No, I think that uh, Venezuela. I mean, Venezuela was a shot across the bow
Yeah.
to everybody in the hemisphere, including the Chinese and the Iranians and the Russians, who were all operating in this hemisphere. And the Biden administration knew that. The Obama administration knew that. They didn't want to do anything about it. That we're not afraid to go in
Yeah.
and to go after people, to protect the integrity of this hemisphere, and to ensure that Russia and China and Iran and the other Islamists, that they are not going to take over one of these other countries. And remember, we were just able to kill the head of MS-13 a couple of weeks ago in a targeted strike in Venezuela because we now have the cooperation of the Venezuelan government.
Good point. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and Venezuela was the operating post for Communist China, Hezbollah, and Russia in South America,
Mhm.
and in the hemisphere. That there was their tentacles reached out because they had a friendly government there, reached out from that point into other places.
Mhm.
So, so Venezuela was very positive. What's going on with Cuba is going to be a lot more complicated,
Mhm.
but the overall message to the world needs to be if you're going to align, and this is the subtext to all of this,
Mhm.
one, if you're going to commit Islamic terrorism, either the Israelis or the Americans we're going to come after you. Two, if you are aligned with the communists in China, and you are going to help facilitate Chinese imperialism or Russian imperialism in other parts of the world, that we're not going to tolerate it. And that's really important. That's a message, a forceful message that
Mhm.
has not really been articulated um, for decades, probably since George W. Bush.
Yeah. Is there? I mean, speaking of the hemisphere, is Cuba going to fall? Have they already fell right now? And where does the United States play in bringing them clean water and bringing them electricity at this point? Have
Uh,
we gotten that far?
no, we haven't gotten that far, but again, it's going to be very complex.
Yeah.
And Cuba is an enormous economic opportunity for the United States, more
Right. I
so
mean, it's
than
just
Venezuela
geographically
or any of these other
located. It's amazing.
and one of the things that I think that the Catholic Church is probably going to be involved in some of this. It's a conversation that the Secretary of State Marco Rubio had with the Vatican and with the Pope
Yeah.
about how do we reintegrate um, remember, it's a Marxist society,
Right.
and there's been some liberalization and reintegration of faith back into the society, but it was a Roman Catholic country. How do we leverage the various charitable arms of the Catholic Church, perhaps, to be a vehicle to deliver aid
Mhm.
and to help ensure that hospitals are modernized, for instance,
Right.
and schools are also modernized. Um, but from a U.S. Perspective, economic perspective, Cuba needs everything. They
Mhm.
need everything from the wiring in in every building, to roads, to traffic lights, to new hospitals, to new schools, to modern manufacturing facilities that can not
Mhm.
only support their own country but can also help them export
Yeah.
more than cigars. There's
Good.
so it needs literally everything,
Yeah.
and so there is a very significant economic opportunity
Yeah.
for U.S. investment there, and of course, cutting off from the Russians and the Chinese another base of operations
Mhm.
that they've had for far too long, 90 miles off the coast of Florida.
Yeah. And I do a lot of travel and vacation. I'm very in touch with like cruise lines and things like that. And they just started going down to Honduras. And I was there a couple weeks ago. And it's like you're looking at the economic intake of just, we were just obviously one ship, but there's another ship that was docked there too.
Sure.
You start putting a couple beaches there in Cuba and say, hey, here's a cruise line. You got
Well, they have
4,000
them.
people
I
going
mean,
there.
that's the whole thing. I mean, Cuba has continued to be a playground of sorts for other countries in the world. We've had our travel restrictions.
Right.
They obviously the Castro regime obviously confiscated billions of dollars worth of American property
Yep.
after the revolution, after everything was all private property was then given to the government, and the government
Right.
nationalized all the industries. So and it's a gorgeous country.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
there is a lot of potential. There's also a lot of potential, of course, for Cuban Americans
Yeah.
to feel like they can go back to their homeland. Not that they're going to move back there, but to be able to to travel to be able to travel back there.
Well, to bring
And
American dollars back to Cuba, spend it in Cuba on vacation or whatever, and
that's
then go
right.
back. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Just a
So
side note, so we're keeping it equal, though. I just want to say that a lot of the land that was taken by the Cuban government and Castro was actually mafia owned too. So, you got to throw that in there as well.
Well, I mean, yes, yes, the casinos and whatnot, but there was a lot of
Yeah.
private land, and there were a lot of private holdings, And but I think that there's enormous potential there.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do it the way that you're going to need a scalpel,
Yeah.
not a club to do
Right.
this.
It
And I
won't be
think,
military at all. It'll be a slow trickle of, hey, let's take up the embargo or whatever. Let's slowly
but it
introduce
has to be
us into
tied.
the war.
But it has to be tied to reforms. You cannot have
Yeah.
a communist government there, and think that you're ultimately going to liberalize. We tried to do this with China. It doesn't work. Right? We tried to do this with China, and China has now doubled down on communism,
Yeah.
and so we have an unfriendly government that doesn't share any of our values in communist China, and we have allowed them to increase the size of their economy by 15 times since in the last 30 years. So we don't want to have that happen. So there have to be some significant government reforms that are tied to it, but an enormous opportunity for the United States.
Yeah. Well, right now it's June, mid-year, 2026. Where are we by the end of the year? After the elections, the generals are done. We got a new House, couple Senate, 1/3 of the Senate turns over. Where are we at? What were we doing as a country?
What are we doing as a country?
Mhm.
Well, I think that um, it depends on who wins in November.
Right.
Okay, look, the
Is Trump
fundamentals the
impeached? Yeah.
fundamentals of the economy are actually pretty strong.
Mhm.
Okay, stock market is at record highs.
Yeah.
150 million Americans or whatever it is got a tax cut. We've got
Yeah.
they just got a tax cut. Nobody seems to remember this, and the White House has done a really bad job talking about the impact of the tax cuts on Americans.
Mhm.
But but it's true.
Yeah.
They got a tax cut, and unemployment is low. Job creation is
Yep.
stronger than people had projected. So
Mhm.
and I think that if they resolve the thing in Iran, gas prices are going to come down.
Correct.
Food prices are still high. There's
Of
very
course.
little that the federal government can do about that.
Mhm.
Um, and so overall, I think it's going to the mood of the country and the economy is going to rest on whether or not we end up with a Democratic Congress. And if we have a Democratic Congress that is going to immediately start talking about raising taxes,
Hmm.
um, and increasing spending by trillions of dollars that we don't have, and all of this stuff, and then they're going to do another impeachment. They're going to they're going to try to impeach Trump and all of that. Then I think we can see an economic downturn. Um, I think that you're California. The other thing that you're going to see too is if you have a
Mhm.
Democratic Congress, California, New York, um, and Illinois. Let's just take them.
Okay.
Um, I think that they're going to try to get a federal bailout. All of these states are in
Yeah.
really bad shape. New York City, really bad financial shape. Um,
Mhm.
$100 billion, whatever it is, in unfunded liabilities. It is a lot. Okay, it's all these giveaways to the unions, to their cronies, the public employees unions, the teachers unions, all of it. No, they're cratering. They can't raise taxes enough on enough people to pay
Mhm.
all of these liabilities. California is a disaster. Um,
Yeah.
and I think ultimately what these Democrats want to do is they want Tennesseans, they want you and I
Mhm.
to pay for the bailouts of these states and these cities and these
Right.
deep blue jurisdictions. So you'd see a movement for that as well. So that's why Republicans have to they have to show up to vote. Conservatives have to show up
Mhm.
to vote if they want to hold on. If they want to hold on, even if the numbers are off by 10%, because people are like, they didn't pass the
Mhm.
Save America Act. Yeah, I'm ticked off about that. But you're going to get Hakeem Jeffries. You're
Yeah.
going to get socialists. who are going to be driving the train. No matter what they say, no matter how moderate they try to appear, they're look at James Tallarico
Yeah.
in Texas. Look at
Right.
a guy like Plattner in Maine.
Maine.
Um, you're going to get this fringe, and they're
Mhm.
going to have an impact overall on not just the mood of the country, because as we discussed, they're anti-American
Right.
in their value system, but I think that it could have a real detrimental impact on the economy.
Yeah. And we'll see. And we'll see what happens in California too, for that matter, with the governor's race. I mean, you got Steve
Yeah,
Hilton,
yeah. I
polling
mean,
too. Second.
I
Yeah.
want to believe that that can happen. Like it could be a thing. Structurally, the way that they do their voting,
Yeah.
with
Which,
the
okay.
unsolicited mail ballots, with the voter harvesting and everything, it is all completely
Yeah.
designed to protect Democrat incumbents and to protect
Yeah.
Democrats. So it's going
Just
to
as
be really
Gavin
hard
Newsom
to
said,
see.
there's a break the glass scenario. If there's a problem, they're going to pull that out. And
Yeah.
we saw that when in LA with Spencer Pratt. I mean, I still waiting to see all the fallout with that. People are being, I mean, just for a record, so I'm not being like slanderous. People are getting arrested right now for voter fraud. I mean, they're already in jail. So those things are happening. What degree? Maybe we'll never figure it out. Maybe we will. Well, who knows? But
We may never know. Just like we may never know. I don't believe that Joe Biden legitimately got 81 million votes
no.
in 2020.
Mhm.
Can I prove to you how many of those are fraudulent and where they were? No, I
Yeah.
can't do it. But I think that if you look at at this logically, and you
Right.
see the way that these laws are
Sure.
constructed in these blue states,
Yeah.
um, it's
Mhm.
it makes a degree of sense that there was something there that put its finger on
Yeah.
the scale.
For sure. All right. So, Tom, for more information, how can we reach out, see your work, your papers, your writings, your book, obviously Newsmax, plug all that.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so on X, which used to be Twitter, I'm at Tom_Basile. On Instagram, I'm at Tom Basile. You can go to tombasile.com to see my columns. And you can tune into, or you can go to the Washington Times to see my columns. Most of my columns appear in the Washington Times. And you can watch America Right Now on Newsmax Television, Saturdays from 9 to 11. And then I do a lot of other stuff for the network. And yeah, that's how you find me.
Yeah, that's awesome, Tom. Thank you so much for your time. I hope we can do this again in 6 to 8 months when we
Yeah.
figure out the rest of the world and just kind of go, all right, this is where we're at again, and then we can continue to follow
And,
along.
and Brian, we didn't even talk about Knoxville and Knox County. So we've got a lot more that we can talk about. But thank you again for having me and for everything that you do.
Yeah.
You're becoming a real powerful voice in our area. And, and I, as a resident, I appreciate what you do.
Oh, thank you. And thank your team and Bob as well over there too, as well. It's always fun emailing back and forth. So, all
You
right, guys,
got it.
thank you so much for listening to this interview. This has been The Truth Between Lines.